okay, this is it. The Panthers finally ended the season with 2 frickin' wins. This is Chris Tabor's hopefully final press conference as interim head coach. I, of course, know that it's going to take some time, but he did not deserve that mantle. We did not need to fire Frank Reich. But I'm going to put my bias to the side to do this breakdown. Let's jump into it.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
Okay, yep. This is it. This is Chris Tabor. I know I said it, I set my bias to the side, but I'm going to really try. Probably doesn't help with that little blurb down there, but hey, Chris, you have the floor. Again, hopefully this is your last press conference, but if it isn't, I'll see you again.
Look at that.
Huh?
First class, sir.
We'll wait for you.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. Okay, everybody. Just obviously wrapped it up with the guys. Had an opportunity to visit with them, and now you're kind of in that, what I say, weird part of the NFL. If you don't go to the playoffs, you're in such a routine all during the week. Now all of a sudden it just stops, and that's where we're at. So I'm sure you have some questions. So go ahead and fire away.
First of all, Chris Tabor comes into these press conferences, normally the weekly press conference, not the post-game, lighter hoodie, normally happier, cracking jokes and everything like that. So that's absolutely what I expect from this. Already, body language is very positive, very, hey man, last game of the season, already happened and everything. So we're just going to kind of look towards the off season and stuff like that. I'm not going to give him a pass for this. This is not the Chris Tabor that we would see in post games. He would come in there, be very short and everything like that. So I don't like the flip-floppiness from Chris. With that, the offensive performances towards the end of the season were subpar at best. I don't have a thing to put up on the screen, but actually now I do. Hopefully it's up there. And yeah, you're seeing the comparisons, the splits, the average game, and how Chris Tabor, once he took over, the offense got worse. The defense, ironically, got better somehow, but also the special teams got better. The special teams was at a negative under Reich and a positive under Tabor. So that tells me something. I'm going to let everybody pull their own stuff, but yeah, just know the history. If you've been here for these breakdowns, you've seen his moods change between different ones. This is a light hoodie day, so you're going to get a light Chris Tabor.
Chris, you were obviously here the last few years, got to know Scott really well. I know you.
Yep, R.I.P. Scott Fitterer. As of this morning, he was fired. I am recording this on the 8th of January 2024. Congratulations for everybody to making it to 2024. Thank God Scott Fitterer is gone. I could finally get rid of my petition.
You guys have dealt with a lot of adversity this year. Can you talk about what your relationship was like with him?
Oh, I had a great relationship with him and got a lot of respect for him. And as
this is going to be my bias coming through. If you read the Hunger Games article from The Athletic by Joe Person and Diana Rossini, where they stated that multiple offensive, quote-unquote, offensive coaches went behind Frank Reich's back with GM Scott Fitterer in an attempt to get Frank ousted. We heard about this as early as week 3 when he talked about these meetings happening and how he didn't necessarily like that. And a lot of people kind of bashed Frank for that. Now, with 2020 vision of the past, I think that Chris Tabor was one of the coaches. The reason why I say that, and the reason why I made sure to enunciate offensive, is because my long-time theory is that the offensive word in that article was meant to maybe throw a little bit off. Remember that Chris Tabor was retained from the rule side, and the owner, David Tepper, forced Reich to have Tabor. So it would make sense that Tabor would go behind Reich's back to try and usurp that. The reason why I'm saying that is because Peter King then confirmed a day or so after the article came out that, quote-unquote, multiple groups of people went behind Frank Reich's back. That is why I'm anti-Chris Tabor as of right now. Again, he does some good press conferences on occasion, but that's it. We're back to the breakdown. I promise.
in anything, it's always tough when there's a departure and you won't see him every day and those type of things. So, but very thankful for the time that I had with him.
Chris, you guys really seem to stabilize on special teams the last couple of years. Looking back, regardless of what happens, what will that group mean to you, and what are you proudest of?
proud of all those guys. Played a lot of guys this year, and I was very appreciative of how those guys raised their level and kept getting better. Saw some young players getting better, and that's the fun part of coaching. I know sometimes you don't get always the results that you want, but you saw some incremental improvements, and real pleased with that.
Have you met with Tepper and kind of what he or anybody has said about the future of the coaches who are still under contract right now?
I haven't met with him regarding that information, and today has been kind of a hectic day. Got in, you watch the tape, and then you're going through exit interviews. And
you watch the tape of an offensive performance that put up 124 offensive yards the week before when we got blanked. 124. In fact, hold on, I'm going to pull this up. You might actually end up seeing it on the screen, but if so, I will pull it away. I'm pulling up some stats that I got on Excel from those games. Okay, week 18, total offensive yards 199. So 2 separate weeks, sub 200 yards. The only other game that we had less than 200 yards was the Frank Reich game, his last game, where we versed at the time one of the best defenses in the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys, in which he had 187. So, yeah, I'm not going to give anybody a pass for this. This is a failure from Chris Tabor. This is a failure from Thomas Brown, even though, I feel like Thomas Brown did kind of get thrown a little bit under the bus. And, again, I think that the whole play calling duties being removed with Frank and him obviously solidified Frank's exit. But neither of these guys are ready for prime time. I'm not sure what Thomas Brown was doing with McVay, but it clearly wasn't calling plays because he wasn't able to do it here. Now, if it's something like it's just straight personnel, I totally understand that. It's the drum I've been beaten for the entire year, since the preseason. The personnel hasn't been there. The idea that Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark, and a 33-year-old Adam Thielen was going to somehow help Bryce Young become this great talent, I don't agree. He had a Dewey Haskins level of crappy rookie year. In fact, he was a little bit better. I think Dewey had 7 touchdowns and 7 picks. Whereas Bryce finished with 11 touchdowns and 10 picks, which was considerably less than Daniel Jones for comparison, okay? So that's just something to think about. This was a total failure this year from every level of this team, Bryce Young included. Coaching, again, I agree that maybe Frank Reich wasn't the best solution, but, man, this was bad. And it only got worse once we got rid of him, so.
And the players are coming through and having an opportunity to visit with them. So that's kind of really where the focus has been all day.
I know you like to stay in your routine, but what's the plan for you for the next few weeks?
I try to, for the couple days, it's kind of nice to you take a break. Then after that, I think the wife says, hey, you might want to go do something, because I get a little fidgety because I'm out of a routine. So I have to kind of try to find a new routine. I'll find one.
Chris, Hayden Hurst thought that maybe there were too many voices in Bryce's ear this year.
Hayden Hurst ain't going to be on the team next year because he opened his mouth. Remember that David Tepper fired everybody that was linked to C.J. Stroud. He fired Deuce Staley. He fired Josh McCown. He fired Frank Reich. 3 people that were the most vocal about wanting C.J. Stroud. I wonder who Chris Tabor wanted.
Among staff members, any thoughts on that and sentiments, kind of what went on that side of the ball?
No, I don't have any thoughts on that. I think when the change was made, I still stayed in my special teams area and let each side of the ball work there. So I don't have an opinion on what he said there.
With the interim role, I'm assuming that you worked a little bit more with Evero throughout the season. I mean, you worked with him obviously throughout the season, but maybe got a better glance at what he does. What does he do well as a coach and as a coordinator?
And Evero has that $1 million smile. He's infectious every time he's up on that podium. I'm going to be real sad to not have him on our team anymore, but I'm really hoping he lands in a great spot, especially if the Ravens McDonald leaves there. I'm pretty sure he's the DC. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong, but if that's the case and Evero becomes a Baltimore Raven as the defensive coordinator, oh my God, I am worried for a lot of people because Evero did improve over time. I just think that we're missing something. I'm just not sure what that is, and I don't know if Evero is that solution. Sorry.
He's a good football coach, and more importantly, an even better person. And just really like the way that he handles himself. I think that whole defensive staff, they do a great job with regards to getting guys to play, but their organization of how they do things. I mean, they're very efficient, and it was a lot of fun to watch, and very appreciative to have the opportunity to be with those guys.
How will this work operationally, Chris, with these guys, these assistants, now that the season's over and there's not a full-time coach? I mean, will they be around here? I mean, do you know?
Yeah, you know what, I can only speak from experience on that from whether it was last year or previous organizations that I've been with. Typically what happens anyway is at the end of the season, everyone kind of
No, they all just need to be fired, and we need to completely start anew. Let's not even try and play with this.
decompresses for a couple weeks, and you're you're still in a little bit of a holding pattern, but at the same time, you're still working on football, working on your craft, getting cut-ups, and because you're trying to stay in some type of routine. And I think that every guy kind of handles it differently.
Are you and Dan Morgan kind of working on personnel things right now, just for organizationally to get ready for the offseason?
To be honest with you, I haven't even visited with Dan yet. Like when I say it's been a hectic morning, it's been a hectic morning.
Coming out that Scott Fitterer goes someplace as his GM and then does really well, do we then look at Fitterer in hindsight as another one of the Tepper pawns? I'm not sure, but if you know, drop it in the comments below.
Have you always been able to stay calm and positive, or is this something you...
Okay, regardless of what he answers, go watch the post games. I don't care what you're going to say about, oh, he's this or he's that. His real demeanor is in those post games. His real, like, I'm going to be an a-hole kind of things, or that I'm going to be more confrontational and everything, comes out in those. This is not the Chris Tabor that we've seen it all. Actually, I take that back. In a single post game press conference, he's been short, to the point, and just shut off. That's who he's been. Even in a win, that's what he was.
Throughout your career?
No, I think that's who I want to be. I learned a long time ago. I know that sometimes I can probably be a little colorful on the sideline, but really, I want to stay positive. If a guy makes a mistake or whatever, he didn't do it on purpose. When I make a bad call, I didn't do it on purpose. Really didn't.
So it's everybody else's fault, but I'm not even gonna touch that. Actually, let's just go forward.
And we're playing a kid's game, and like I always say, it's about the relationships, and that's what's important.
Speaking of the relationships, I talked to Bryce, I talked to JC, and also Icky, and they said one of the most important things that helped them get through this tough season was the brotherhood in the locker room. Can you speak to that?
Again, another failure from the Panthers AV club, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Obviously, I'm just joking with that. But yeah, we really need you guys to get on your game when it comes to hearing these questions. I have headphones on. I have it turned up, and I could barely freaking hear it. I'm going to try and go back a little bit and see if we can actually hear this, dude.
That's what's important.
Speaking of the relationships, I talked to Bryce, I talked to JC.
Speaking of the relationships, I've talked to Bryce and I've talked to JC.
And also Icky, and they said one of the most
including Icky.
important things that helped them get through this tough season was the brotherhood in the locker room.
It's apparently what helped get those guys through this season. That's what it seems like the question is. Very hard to hear. Hopefully it's coming through on the caption side. But yeah, it's very odd. So those guys said the brotherhood kept them together. Can he speak to that?
It was a tight group. Really was. And that's, I think, we talked about it in the locker room a little bit last night, and then we talked about it one more time in the team meeting today. That room's going to change, but your memories are not going to change. And I think what those guys have done a great job. And it wasn't offense, just the offensive guys and defensive guys and special teams. It was everybody. You can walk in there and watch an offensive lineman want to play Eddie Pinheiro and ping pong. That's and they're laughing and having a good time. I think that's you have to have that foundation in order to start building to where you want to go.
It's fair. think that you need people kind of pushing in the same direction and everything. And I hope that whoever our head coach / GM, or if that's the same person, shout out Bill Belichick, then I really want to see some growth. I absolutely think Carolina is going to push for Bill Belichick ahead of everybody else. I'm sorry, I just don't see anybody else going and getting him. So if that's the case, then I'm going to call it out now. Today is January 8th, where Bill Belichick will be our head coach. I'm not saying I'm necessarily a fan of him coming to the Carolina Panthers, but man, anything's better than what we had last year. Anybody is better than Chris Tabor. Frank Reich was better than Chris Tabor. Frank Reich was better than Thomas Brown, and him and Evero are probably pretty close, but obviously two different sides of the ball.
So are you glad to have had this opportunity despite the record?
No, I am. You know, I think as a coach, and just you can say, well, he's been in it a while. You're still trying to get better, and you're still chasing things. And this opportunity has allowed me to do that. There are things that came across my desk that I didn't even know took place, even being in this business a long time. So very grateful for the opportunity. Obviously, you always hope that you win more, but I thought that we got better and showed some improvement, and I was very appreciative to the guys for getting that done.
Have you gotten your fill of the position, or has it left you hungrier for more?
I've always wanted to be a head coach, so that's I think it's something hungry for more.
He become the head coach of after this. He was a part of the Bears, or the Browns winless season. He's a part of the Panthers 2-win season. I think he's part of the problem, no?
Did you express that to Dave?
Haven't visited with him.
That's right.
What's the one memory that you're going to take away from this season, from either as the special teams coordinator or the interim head coach, or is there, the one thing that you latch onto that will always remind you of this group?
Tell you mine. My number one Panthers moment from this season. My number one thing that I'm going to go look back on and everything like that is the fan base. The reason why I bring up the fan base is because so many people inside the fan base said a lot of different things. When the season was starting off, man, we're going to win 10 games. We're going to win 8 games. We're going to win 9 games. Somebody even said like 12 or 13 wins. That's crazy. So many people came out and said Bryce would have a top-tier rookie season. There's so many things that fans predicted, and none of those happened. But yet nobody's willing to accept that moving forward. There's always going to be some caveat or some way around it or something like that. This year, 2023, now we're in 2024, of course, but the 2023 Panthers season was accountability, and the only person that had it was the guy that got canned. That's what I'll remember from this season. I will remember how Panthers ownership, the Panthers front office, and everybody inside the Panthers organization treated our first quarterback, the person who threw our first touchdown, the person who came in there and is arguably one of the best backup quarterbacks of all time. And it's measured in the numbers. The minute Frank Reich left, it got worse. And it's only going to get worse unless we get a true top-tier talent in there. And the one thing that our owner isn't going to tell him? To hire outside his circle. But he told Frank that. The way we treated him is disgusting, and if this organization is going to continue, they need to rectify that, period.
Oh, boy, that's a great question. That's a tough question because you think of so many things. Really going, to be honest with you, thinking about this, didn't like the way we played in New Orleans. Wasn't real happy after the game on that one. And then to be able to look those guys in the eye and say, guys, we're going to win this next game. And go through that process the next week, and then you show up Sunday, and it's a rainstorm, windstorm, everything else is going, and it's all we have. And we end up winning the game, and to be able to celebrate in the locker room because we all did it together. That was going back to that brotherhood. That's where it really surfaced. It was pretty neat.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Shout out to the Carolina Panthers YouTube. Sorry, I was trying to pull something up, and of course I can't right now. I don't know really he really got that Saints thing. The offense and defense on pretty much all the games was subpar. Again, I'm super happy that Chris Tabor will be moving on. If he's retained moving forwards, and if you're the head coach and you're going to come interview, that would be a point of contention for me. Chris Tabor is not allowed on this team. But regardless, my name is Nick. We do breakdowns like this on the regular, right here on Roll Coverage. More coming out. Just because it's the off season doesn't mean the videos are slowing down. Let's hop on this train and go. Peace.